begin by introducing you all, and as I was telling Ellie, in an anti-capitalist way, which is instead of focusing on introducing you all status, but to focus on how we're connected to each other and how you impacted me. And then we'll go into the questions such as your art and creativity process, what inspires you, and what's your deepest fear and your biggest hope and vision regarding your creativity. And I think that's all we have. So we probably only have time for those 3 questions. And yeah, and your official bios are, I believe, on the OCZ website. So yeah, those 3 now, let us begin. Welcome again to OCZ Fest 5POC panel. We have on the panel Ifo Ikeda from Isoko in West Africa and what is now known as Nigeria. We have Frosty in Southern California, originally from Mexico. Is anyone hearing an echo? I don't know if it's from the fan. Okay. So, and then we got Carlton, also in Southern California. And we got Ali Vega, originally from the Philippines. And yeah, we're all Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, and that's why it's a BIPOC panel. And I wanted to start by way of introductions, how we're all connected to each other and how we impact each other. I think I'll start with Ali Vega. I think out of the 4 of you, I think I've known her the longest so far. So I met Ali about over a year ago at Sunday Job, and there was this amazing dance class that she taught, and since then I've taken some online dance classes from her, and that's just amazing in my dance journey and evolution. I've learned a lot from her. And then we got Frosty, who leads the More Better Mondays, or hosts the More Better Mondays community discussions and live music, and it's also a singer and a rapper and a poet. And I've learned a lot from her songs, and just really impacted me in a way. It gives me a language and a story for some of the things that I feel. Like 2 of my favorite songs by her puppet show. I actually drew a drawing based on that song on how there are layers of puppetry going on. And then the others, of course, Fucking Apology, which to me describes a lot of the faux apologies that people do after causing harm that are not real apologies. So yeah, the songs are like empowering. And then we got Ifo Ikeda, who is part of my Indigenous Roots and Meeting and also facilitates the White Fragility Facebook group. And I've learned so much from Ifo and from our discussions, especially on really not tolerating fragility, basically, or this so-called defensiveness and gaslighting and reverse victimhood that a lot of these people who have oppressive power often engage in. And then we got Carlton, who again creates amazing music that's so lively and makes me want to dance, but also brings awareness to important issues such as Black Lives Matter, etc. Yeah, that is how I know all of you.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody.
Woo! What's up?
I'm so excited. Thank you for the introductions, Kundan. Can we introduce you? Can we all say one thing or how we are related to Kundan?
Sure, yeah, of course.
Okay. So Kundan I would consider him a very good friend. Very supportive in many ways, whether it is, just educating me out of his own free will on just things going on or giving me advice, especially as a host. I think it's important to listen to the community. So there's been times where he's like, I don't think you should have them perform, or I don't think what is being said is correct. So I really value that perspective, and it's helping me grow as just a human being. And something I admire about Kundan is that I think I met him at the Cool Lab project in Santana. And something I admire about him is the fact that he will be the first one to dance. Like sometimes I will like really like something that's being played, and then I'm too shy to dance. But then Kundan's like already like feeling himself, like, and it just inspires me to dance and inspires others to dance. So that's just one thing that I admire about him.
Hey, thank you.
So I just learned something new about you. I'm also usually the first one to dance.
Ooh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hold space for us on our weekly on meetings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Kundan also
Yeah.
space for a lot of Black, Indigenous people of color, for sure.
Yeah, and Ifo, why do we call it an unmeeting? Since we changed the name from storytelling and meditation to an unmeeting.
Well, there are no words in English to perfectly describe what we were doing, and it wasn't a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's awesome.
on meeting seemed more appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I know Kundan through, I think, going to Cypher Connection, and I enjoy his poetry and the very introspective, deep, like, oh, I never thought of it like that type of things he brings up. So, yeah. And thank you for holding space. Sorry, I didn't know if I was on mute. Thank you for holding space for us today, Kundan.
Yay, thank you, Colton.
I'll go. I know Kundan through what he mentioned earlier, Sunday Jump, which is a Filipino American centered open mic series in historic Filipino town. And yeah, we met at specifically a workshop I was doing there, where I was combining dance and like journaling and meditation. But yeah, I'm so glad we've met, because since then we've been able to connect on so many different issues that center like the body and what it means to embody liberation. And yeah, I love meeting other folks that do that type of work. So I'm really excited to be in a space with all of you, because we all do that work. And it's important to do that right now, truly. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Kundan, for having me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, let's go with the first question, which is basically the central topic of this, right? Your art and creativity process. What's the urge, right? What inspires you or motivates you to express, to create art, to be creative, and what's the process you use for creation after you get inspired? And anybody can go first.
Often for me, it's sort of like when I cook, I go into the kitchen and I have no idea. I just know I'm going to cook. I have no idea what I'm cooking. So I say I let the spirits lead me. And my creative process is sort of like that. There sometimes is like a spiritual hunger, whether it be a conversation I've had with someone or a conversation that I'm preparing for, or an event that I'm performing at. And then it's very spirit led. It sort of happens, not sure exactly how. There's like a magic that happens, and then after that, there's a little bit of it that I can do again, but it's never exactly the same each time. So it's an organic process.
Wow, that was a very beautiful metaphor, and I can relate to it on so many levels. For me, when you spoke of spirituality and how that kind of went hand in hand with creativity, I agree with that. And I also see creativity as sometimes even a coping mechanism for any emotions or experiences or just thoughts that I really need to transfer out of my body or my soul and into this physical reality. So when you talked about going into the kitchen and not knowing what you're going to cook, but knowing that something's going to happen, I often feel the same way when I'm writing or singing. And I see creativity sometimes like a muscle, like a human muscle. So you can have this innate strength, right, that you just inherited, so you're naturally creative. But just like any other muscle in your body, I feel as though if you exercise it, so you set time aside in your day to practice said creativity in whatever way you choose to be creative, I think that you can really harness that power and that potential within yourself. So that's something that I've learned to do, is to always be creative in anything I do. But yeah, just my little tidbit on creativity.
I love that. I want to piggyback off of that, of both of what you said, because I personally feel very guided by ancestors, and that hasn't happened until like my later years as an adult, to be honest. Yeah, I'm Filipino American, so I grew up actually in Anaheim. And so I grew up very far removed from culture, sadly. So it wasn't until I was like an adult and even past college where I was able to really step into this process of questioning. And yeah, now I can honestly say in the past couple years of my dance career, I've been able to really tap into this, like what you were saying, Frosty, this like innate ability to question and then bring those answers into a physical manifestation into this realm. And so I trust a lot of just asking ancestors for guidance and asking like, and just trusting whatever downloads come in. And as of lately, I definitely feel like the downloads that have been coming through have been everything, honestly, a lot of things on the spectrum, whether it's like this is a joyful feeling or this is a very frustrating feeling. But a lot of it always alludes back to the fact that these downloads are helping me heal the ties I have with the ancestors of the living. So the family that I do have on this earth. And so, yeah, that's what's been like drawing my art as of the past 5 years. But it always it never completely looked like that. And that's what I love about creativity, is that like, as you continue to question and investigate, like it just looks different every day. And it looks different in different forms, like whether it is movement or like writing or just spirituality in general and dialogue like this. So yeah, that's what's been driving me lately, especially during these times.
Mhm. Yeah, and Carlton, are you still here?
Carlton's still muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. What's up?
Yeah,
That's
so tell us about
Carlton's
your
creativity comes from the miming.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
yeah, just your process of creation. What process do you use to create?
Oh, the processes. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I like to, I guess, in the instance of whether I'm creating a song or a visual, I like to internally visual what the kind of like dream goal of that project is. And how does it feel? You know, kind of like focus, kind of there, getting together the materials a day to, you know, physical reality, whether it's sonic, visually.
He's freezing.
Oh,
yeah,
damn.
Yeah, I'm hearing like
Is it? Hello?
static.
Oh
Hello?
no. Here, I have these headphones. I should have put. All right. Hello.
Oh.
Is this better?
Mm-hmm.
I think it might
So
be
yeah,
your location, or maybe the Wi-Fi isn't like going through. It's pausing.
Yeah.
Just
so
cutting out too.
Are you
come
using
back
your Wi-Fi or
in.
your data?
I think my phone is gonna die. Actually,
Oh, okay, yeah.
my phone is trying to die. Let me switch over to my iPad, and I'll call you guys right back.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So while he goes, yeah, I think I see a common theme among a lot of you about uh, it being sort of a download. I think it's the word one of you used now. And then Carlton talks more about uh, a more systematic or like a clear idea of like what he wants to create and then creating step by step. And I think I used a combination of both. I did a whole workshop on my process earlier today, which you can watch on YouTube, this channel. And it's from the book Spontaneous Creativity, but it really is a combination because it is starting with the open awareness above my crown and and then going into my heart where I choose a specific quality of being to embody. Uh, it's a Buddhist process, so there are 84,000 qualities, including what they call the four immeasurables: love, compassion, joy, and equanimity to express, to embody and express. And then we use the lower chakras, such as the navel, and then the chakra below that to amplify it and then express it. And but it is also being a vessel of that openness, of that awareness. And I like this idea of being a vessel because it takes uh, some of the self-consciousness or what we might call our conditioning, or some people might call it the ego, out of the way, in the sense that, for example, there's an allegorical idea. I don't know if it's true or not, but that the or you're back, yeah.
Do you need this on? Yes. All right.
So I was just talking about the importance of being a vessel in our creativity process. So I remember watching a TED talk where this person was telling the story about how the ancient Greeks thought a genius wasn't a person, but some being outside, right? Like a genie that gave you ideas. So that way, if your work wasn't up to your satisfaction, and when those voices of self-judgment come that tell you that your work isn't good enough or that you're not good enough, then it's not your fault, it's the genie's fault. And then conversely, if it is good enough, or if you believe it's good enough, then again, there's a humility to it because again, it's all up to this, right? Outside force. So same thing with whether we download from our ancestors, we download from God, or a mysterious uh, force that we're not aware of. So I really like this idea of being a download. The other question is being like, what are the things that are triggers, or not triggers, but like things that motivate you or inspire you, or is it more like an innate thing, like an innate urge? I remember when I asked Carlton privately earlier, he mentioned about, he mentioned something that really reminded me of the quote that the purpose of art is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable, because he said that when his friends are feeling heavy, he tries to create something light to balance it out. But if they're being complacent or unconcerned or unaware of important issues such as Black Lives Matter and women's rights and queer rights and all of that, then he tries to create art that brings awareness to those issues. So as a balance. So it really reminded me of the quote, comfort the disturbed, disturb the comfortable. So what about you all? Like what are the things that motivate you or inspire you on a daily basis to create something?
So you said what motivates us? Oh, sorry, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
interrupting.
Go ahead.
Okay. Um, hopefully, I can. Can you guys hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, being motivated on a daily basis, or I guess trying to avoid that block of inspiration. Um, I think bouncing off of the environment around you is key. I think I talked to you, Kundan, about when times I usually lean towards making music that's more serious in times where everything's kind of more chill, and music that's more calming in times that are more intense, or at least, you know, or something that bounces off that, just to um, play in the ether, like, so I think that is a good motivation to just have that, hold that space as well, on at least for my journey. I like holding in that space. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of what I do is around sharing the wisdoms of the ancestors that came to me when I was younger, but there was nobody else sharing it. And so I'm trying to be that voice or be that guide that I would have wanted to hear when I was younger. And also because um, we live in a very anti-Black, anti-Indigenous world, and we as Africans are blessed with being both Black and Indigenous. And so we get multiple levels of these things that are coming at us. So most of what I do is around um, protecting the collective community and providing people with tools that they can use to either deal directly with white supremacy as it comes at them, but also to help them to conceptualize that they are not the problem. Because I think oftentimes we get this weird reverse victimhood thing where people start trying to figure out how can they make white people feel more comfortable. And I'm like, that's not our job. Slavery's supposed to be over. They're not going to, hopefully not going to lynch us.
Yes.
That's just like, keep it real. They've never been concerned for over 400 years in making us comfortable. So why should we? They say they want equality, then let's give them equality. We should actually just be who we are, independent of any external Eurocentric lens. And I think that's sort of what I'm striving for, is to continue to root out the vestiges of Eurocentricity is in me, and to lean more towards the path of our ancestors as we move forward, and be unapologetically Isoko, which is the name of my
Mm-hmm.
and our language.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I come from.
I love that, Ifo. In fact,
Also,
that's been my own direction and my creative inspiration, especially in the last few weeks and the last few months. It's really cel- celebrating my existence itself and reclaiming the pleasure of my existence itself, because it's clear that whiteness and the whole system that whiteness created, they want us to die. And I don't just mean a physical death, they want us to die via assimilation, right? And assimilation is also a form of genocide. So it's a spiritual, emotional, mental death by assimilation into whiteness or white adjacentness. And so my joy is my defiance. And that's why, especially lately, I've been doing these dance series on Instagram Reels where I'm just reclaiming the erotic, reclaiming my pleasure. And when I say reclaiming the erotic, I mean the eroticism of my existence itself. It's not uh, just a purely sexual thing, it's a whole spectrum of who I am, and reclaiming that, and reclaiming that as a as a defiance, because I exist and there's nothing they can do about it.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I value all of the things that were just said by all of you, and I can relate to many of them. Kundan, when you talked about, not assimilating and how that is a spiritual, mental, and emotional death, I related to that heavily, which is actually one of the reasons why I decided to become an artist, a performer, because growing up, I never saw people who looked like me featured in cartoons or magazines, and if they were extremely sexualized. They pretty much served no purpose other than being eye candy. So I never got that role model growing up, and that going back to something that you were saying, Ifo, is that having this ancient wisdom when you were younger, but having no one to share it with because of whatever the case may be, ageism or the people around you. And I think that that's something that I value a lot, knowing that there are younger people that look up to me, or younger people that are watching what I'm doing, and they're going to take my message and really sit with it and try to maybe even replicate it. That's what I would do when I was younger. And I actually, speaking of like Eurocentric ideologies and features, I remember flipping through magazines. As you can see, I have like art all over my walls. I like to flip through magazines and cut out things that I would like, which is why I'm so grateful to be on this Zine Fest, because I definitely a old hobby of mine. But all the pictures I would see, they were white, skinny woman, and it made me feel as though I was different or wasn't good enough because I never saw representation in media. And I know many other young girls or just young children in general feel the same way, whether it be young Black girls or young, girls of Asian or Pacific Islander descent. And I'm very glad to see that we are starting to get more representation in media, but I also realize that it needs to be more than just representation. It needs to be empowerment. So there needs to be people in these groups or in these corporate meetings, if that's what people want to do. At least give them that opportunity to have a voice, because if you're going to market towards inclusivity, you really have to practice what you preach and make sure that your boards are inclusive. And that's what I'm trying to do with just creating and who I work with. That's something that I try to keep in mind. Do my beliefs align with this person? Do they inspire me? Because it is, at the end of the day, a reciprocity, right? In order to have that balance, you need to build off one another. And that's just something that I try to keep in mind when I create, whether it's something visual or musical, or even just a connection greater than just networking. It needs to be a true, genuine connection, and that's something that I look for when I just meet anyone and everyone. So
Yeah, I love that.
I love that. Yeah, just ditto to everything that has been said. Everyone is just bringing the wisdom, I'm feeling it, energy, like even through a computer screen, I'm feeling it. I'm inspired a lot by just like raw feelings, like whether that's like raw exchanges. Oh my God. And I also really love like raw, organic music, like anything, right? Like anything that could produce a beat. Like that is my favorite stuff to just like freestyle to, because it doesn't get any more real than that, like when they take everything away, all the fancy stuff away from us, and like all that's left is just like our bodies and our breath. And we as humans are able to create music and movement from that, and like ritual. Oh my gosh, like my soul shakes just even thinking about it. And like it's like as artists, like we know what that feels like. It's just true magic, and it's like most pure state. And that's what really moves me to create, is like that feeling of just like pure magic between people, like different types of people, like even just these types of interactions with everybody, like just understanding, like bridging everything, you know? And I'm always really inspired by learning about other people's like upbringings and cultures and like what makes us similar, you know? I think we're living in a time right now that's so focused on what makes us different, which is insane because like, of course, if you were to give someone like a pen and paper and just be like, list everything that makes us different. Yeah, of course we're gonna like spiral into self-hatred, you know? But like, if you were to tell everybody to think about like what really brings us together, what do we have in common? It's just, it's magic, you know? And like, that's something that we as humans have been able to create. Like, it doesn't matter if we speak the same language, it doesn't matter if we are able-bodied or whatever, like we can produce that. And I just think that type of gift is so important now more than ever. And that's what really draws me to create everything I do right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just really quickly, I wanted to share something that popped in my head while you were talking about freestyling, Ali, and talking about things that we have in common. I recognize that you're a dancer, and I'm also a rapper. So I freestyle as well, but I freestyle in a different way, verbally, and you do it physically. So I just think that's very beautiful, and just another connection that I wanted to share. We both, and I think art in general. I know many artists freestyle, whether it's even this right now, the way we're speaking, this conversation is a freestyle. I didn't have notes prepared. And I don't know if you guys did, but yeah, lots of commonalities between us, and I appreciate that.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
I'm just kidding. That's not me.
He's like, I wrote a whole novel before I came here. I'm just
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of freestyle, I think even my own dance is a freestyle. I didn't even think of it that way before. But yeah, because I just don't have a plan usually. I just dance whatever and I follow the song, like the music and sometimes even the lyrics. I follow. I think there are also elements of interpretive dance to it, why, which is me interpreting the meaning of the lyrics of the song as well.
And just tying that back
Love
into
that.
like going with the flow and letting your ancestors guide you,
Mhm.
I think that learning to freestyle or getting better at freestyling is something that I'm trying to do, and going back to, you know, exercising that muscle, putting yourself in a position where you don't have anything but either the beat or, you know, the spirits to guide you. I think that's a very beautiful thing, and a way that I am learning to tap into my ancestry as well.
Mhm. Yeah. And also, real quick, I should have done this in the beginning, but let's get a little bit into your identities. Like, what are your pronouns, and ethnically or racially, what do you identify as, especially if you have still have connections to indigenous roots, which indigenous tribe you identify with. Yeah. I go by they, them, by the way, as my pronouns, and I'm a Punjabi, and my indigenous roots are Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sikhism, because it's more than a religion, it's an ethnicity in a sense, especially with Hinduism and Buddhism as well. And that's something most people might not be aware of. And then I was born and raised in Myanmar, which used to be called Burma, and it's in Southeast Asia.
I am Isoko from the Niger Delta region of West Africa. I grew up in Yoruba territory, so I can relate to some Yoruba ideologies. We're technically cousins, so there's a lot of similarities. And I now live in Mi'kma'ki, otherwise known as Nova Scotia, Canada. And yeah, and I'm non-binary, so there's very things in English that make sense, but we roll with it.
Yeah.
It's like freestyling.
My name is Marissa, but everyone refers to me as Frosty. That is my stage name, I suppose. I go by she and her, and I identify as Chicana, so I am Mexican American, and I do consider myself Indigenous because this was California. I believe we're on Tongva territory, and as far as my tribal affiliation, unfortunately, a lot of my ancestry got kind of whitewashed. There was some codices and a lot of history was burned and discarded. So I am trying to get into, or at least tap into my Mexica ancestry, which is yeah, very ancient, and just trying to once again learn from them. And it's very difficult because I found that many of the textbooks and studies and excavations were done by white men. So it's like, where do I even find this information? But just going back to tapping into your ancestry, I'm trying my best to speak to my elders, learn from them, and just follow my heart.
Yeah.
Like Frosty, we have a lot in common in terms of like the same colonizers. So I'm Filipino American, and on my mother's side, her parents, so my grandparents on my mother's side, they're both from the Visayas, which is the middle part of the Philippines. The Philippines is like split up into like northern islands, middle islands, southern islands. So my grandparents on my maternal side are in the middle islands. And then my grandparents on my father's side are from the south, so Mindanao. And I grew up on Tongva territory, so my whole life. And I actually grew up in Anaheim, like I mentioned earlier. I now live in Los Angeles, though. So, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Welcome. Thank you, Ellie and Carlton. Are you still here?
Elton's not here at the moment.
I think
Oh, okay.
Carlton disappeared. He's here in
Okay,
spirit.
so let's go into the final question since we only have a few minutes left, and I believe this will be the last question. And it's a perfect question to end it with. So regarding your creativity, what is your biggest fear and your deepest hope, or your deepest vision for your creativity moving forward? Whether, how do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, in terms of vision? And then also what's your biggest fear?
So I'm sorry, just to recap or summarize, you said, what is your biggest fear in creativity, and what are your aspirations for your creative endeavors? Is that kind of the question?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say one of the things, I wouldn't say it's a fear, I mean, maybe, but just the idea of vulnerability when we create, whether it be just traumatic experiences that we need to relive with our art or through our art when we share it with others. I would say that, and I've experienced that as well. I've made a song about a very personal series of events, and then people liked it, and I have to perform it over and over and over again when sometimes my spirit doesn't feel like tapping into that energy. But I think it just goes back to the idea of not just commodifying things, and that's something I also fear, is not commodifying my culture and not pretty much selling out. So just finding that balance of tapping into your ancestors and their pain and their passion, but not selling it, and finding a way to do so ethically where it's still your ideas and your experiences and your art, but respectfully recognizing your culture. And that's something that I've seen through celebrities, and I'm trying to avoid. So I guess that would be one of my aspirations, is to create authentic art that comes from the heart with honest intentions. And I believe that if I personally keep my intentions pure, then that will reflect through my art. So I can only let them guide me and just keep those things in mind.
Thank you, Frosty. And Ali?
Yeah, kind of similar to Frosty. Like, my fear is that these oppressive structures that keep us down, I'm not going to be able to liberate myself from those. And in turn, not be able to liberate everyone who comes into contact with my art. Yeah, it's a scary thing. I was like, what's crazy was when you asked that, I had like a different answer. And then when Frosty started talking, I was like, oh my God, no, this is what I'm actually really afraid of, because I'm like scared even just saying it, because I put so much of my entire soul and being into creating this type of like space for people. I have a dance company. So like, and that's where I'm talking about, like, I create these spaces, and my hope with it is that we can provide holistic movement modalities for everybody of all types of people, to just be present in their bodies, and in turn that will lead us to like liberation, embodied liberation. And yeah, my fear is that we're not going to be able to do that type of work because these oppressive structures will just continue to wipe us all out. And I know we're all doing such amazing work, and so I know that's not going to happen, but of course, like, there is a fear, and it's like I'm like acknowledging that it's like on my shoulder right now kind of thing. And so yeah, I just want to be honest about that. Like, that's something that's totally on the back of my mind every time I create something new, or every time I'm leading my dance company. That's always like, just like this voice in my ear of like, what if I end up selling out? Or what if I, like, and I never want to get to that place. So it's always just about like continuing to ground yourself in your practice, and to just like listen to ancestors, and, really trust, really, really, really trust that, like, even in the darkest of moments, like, there is a pathway out of it. And that's something I'm experiencing right now. I feel like we all are, right? Like, it's like a crazy pandemic right now. So it's just really, really just allowing yourself to stay present in this darkness, but to know that we have such beautiful gifts of bringing light into this world.
Yeah. Thank you, Ali. And really, what you both said also reminds me of a meme that I saw, with that don't see artists as just something to be consumed, see them as complete human beings, with flaws, vulnerabilities, fears, and have some empathy. So it's good to also remind our audience about it from time to time, I think, and for us to remind each other of that. All right, go ahead, Ifo.
Pretty much everything that all of you have said is resonating with how I'm feeling. So I have a reflection on Ali's reflection, and my reflection is that you should celebrate that, because I think what sometimes happens is we get complacent and say, "Oh, it's never going to happen to me," or we forget that there's actually an oppressive system out there. And so I think if you continue to be mindful that it's there, while not letting it take over, as in take over all your thinking, I think you will continue to self-correct and allow the ancestors to correct you. So my fears with this are similar. I do not create a whole lot of work that is necessarily deeply personal in some ways. It is, but on a level that people won't know I'm talking about me. But I think the fear is to forget to pay attention, and to get distracted by either someone or some organization being like, "Hey, we have this amazing opportunity for you," and then you go down this road without paying attention to, is this actually something that is beneficial for the bigger picture of what we're trying to do, or is this just a convenient way to get paid or distracted from the work? So that's sort of the fear I have.
Cool. Thank you. thank you, everybody. We're almost at the 3:45-minute mark. We're minutes of that. So yeah, I just wanted to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Ifo, LA, and Frosty, and Carlton for being here on this call. And you can follow them all on their Instagram pages, which I'll post on my own Instagram page as well. And it's also on the OC Zine website. And if you want to continue these discussions for everybody, I know Frosty and Ifo has been on my Indigenous Roots on meetings on Sundays at 3 p.m. every Sunday on Zoom. So go ahead and DM me for link and password. We have discussions like this, but more private. So this one's more public. So Ellie can join us and Carlton as well. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. If you try to follow me on Instagram, it will appear that I'm asleep because I almost never use Instagram, but I'm on Facebook.
All right. Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
I look forward to connecting with you again.